Welcome, everybody, for the June forecast here within our Sacred Self-Healing Experience community. We start with a brief review of what the May forecast has brought us, and this being only the 24th of May, meaning that we still have a whole entire week of May ahead of us. I want to discuss the specials served at the end of the month here in May 2021. Here we're going to come to the official forecast portion here in a little bit. I'd like to ask you guys how May is going for you, and how this being in the heart, how this, what I predicted as no longer just some kind of energy work modality, but a real hands-on tool to move into clarity, how that is going for you. I predicted for May that it's going to be a month of testing, that our core fears are going to get triggered. This happened in regards to many different areas, in regards to our finances, maybe if you're in cryptos, if you're in stocks. This came to us in regards to a yearning for deeper connection with self, and maybe recognizing that our jobs or our lives aren't really that conducive. It came to us in ways that I predicted would be unexpected, so that's why May was not only, or is not only, the month of harmonizing, finding ways to counteract or work with our own resistance, but also the month of finding new solutions, finding things that our ego cannot imagine, as we are moving into this clarity, as we are able to stay in our heart. So these are kind of like the markers here of May, and still going on. In fact, going on so strongly that I posted just a few days ago an energy talk, as I call them now, talking specifically about the heart flutter, those physical sensations that a lot of energetically sensitives over the world experience, and what this has to do with our core fears. How has this been here and is continuing? Obviously, energies don't function in calendar months. That's just a construct we use to communicate time and dates with another. How is this testing, this correcting, this integrating, and really internalizing how you can get into this deeper connection and into more clarity about what you truly want, who you truly are? How's this going for you guys? Yes, and the body, of course, plays also a huge role in this. So we were just referring to these inner voices or these inner coaches that we have. Now the body, and this is the part here that I have been addressing a lot in the energy talks, and also at our online meditations, and also the energy tips, the weekly energy tips, is that our body now has to become a part of that process. It is no longer possible to do this kind of transformation that we're doing without our bodies actually being able to hold that higher vibratory awareness level that we want to manifest. So harmony is not just in regards to like perhaps our subjective feeling of whether we feel good or bad. Harmony is really something that requires us to be a conscious energy manager, and to really be present, and to say, okay, I can feel how my body, my heart, my mind, my spirit, and my soul, how they are really aligned with another. There's no major conflicts. Now we do in our daily lives experience conflicts here and there, and sometimes we have to make compromises. But for as long as we make these compromises in a very conscious way, we should be able to maintain our inner integrity. It only gets difficult when we're acting against what is coming forward here through our body. We have to make sure that, the vessel that we use is kind of like, if you compare it with an engine or with a car, that if you want to drive faster and if you want to, be able to go off-road, you need to have a vehicle that is capable of doing that. Otherwise, you run into danger to, I'm not a mechanic, but you guys know what I mean, right? Where you blow up your engine or, something like that, where your engine is really just not able to maintain that. And yes, it is definitely not coming from the brain. This is something that has to do with our think feeling. Okay, so not just sort of this lower vibratory detecting of whether I feel good or bad. I mean, it's valid on a certain level of being. That's how we operate, but that's a very binary way of perceiving ourselves, good or bad. And there, it's very, very important that you learn to trust the part in you that gives you the strongest vibe, not necessarily the most sort of cons, like as in cognitive cons, because that can be biased and you wouldn't know. You would not know if it's biased because our ego functions more or less like social media, guys. It's an echo chamber. That's the reality of how, our ego as this culmination of our body, emotion, and cognition, how that works. It's designed, okay, to give itself answers. And that has to do with the fail-safe and with, some of the aspects of survival that I've discussed in many other workshops already. The last one we did called Harmony is a nice one to get a little more clarity about, what disharmony actually is and then what levels that actually plays out in our lives. So it's really important to remember that, when it comes to energy management and really trying to let go of the things that no longer serve us, be it in form of behaviors, habits, or even thought patterns or idealizations, or I'm not just talking about outer things, I'm also talking about inner things. Then it's really important that we start to learn to listen to something else, because the ego has that sort of really dominant kind of way of signaling things to us, and it uses the body and it uses our emotions for that. The more you align yourself to truth, the more your entire system will sort of rearrange, will form new neural pathways to respond to truth. But for the most part, just so you guys are aware of, here as a reminder, it takes about 555 days to form new neural pathways. In other words, a year and a half at least of conscious aligning yourself to truth, that this really sort of kicks in, that you have these really strong inner signals that say, no matter what you're thinking right now, no matter what that feels like to you, nope, it's not the right thing, or yes, it is. So where you have that clarity in your decision making, that you can feel your own ego arguing with, because one of the big things here that are coming in June is this pain and fear feeling on this core level, as what I call phantom pain, phantom fear. And what is that? It's the illusion of separation. It's the illusion of you not being connected. The point that we need to understand here is the reason why this is an illusion is because ultimately the only connection that we can control and that we can actually nurture and that we can, cultivate, that truly matters in life, is the connection with ourselves. with our own heart, with our own inner divinity, with our own soul. And out of that, out of cultivating that, the relationships that we are forming in our lives that come to us, due to the resonance that we are, emanating, that we are radiating, not in a mystical way. We will attract people that feel the same way about connection as we do when we cultivate that. And so we will naturally gravitate on other people who are in a better connection with themselves, will naturally gravitate to ourselves. So what we need to recognize is that when we feel scarcity, it is ultimately the illusion or the separation pain that we humans experience when we get reduced, when we get diminished, when we get degraded. Yes, and some people use degradation as form to protect themselves. But see how this works like a ping pong bouncy ball between people, in the unseen interaction between people. It is their separation pain, their scarcity that you are feeling. And because you are not able to discern that in that moment, because the connection that you have with yourself isn't strong enough so that it can tell you, no, don't fall for that. That's just their stuff. That's just them feeling empty. That's just them not feeling loved. That's just them going into defense or protection mode over what they don't have. This is the piece here that we need to learn now. And the way this connects with our spirituality is that it allows us to recognize that there's something beyond what the ego can see, something beyond, the shortcut, the instant gratification, the craving, and all these attachments that we feel back from our childhood. So many people ask me all the time, when does this end? Does this ever end? That we get pulled into our fears, blah, blah, blah. And I say no. And then they're like, oh. And I'm like, well, why does that make you feel bad? It doesn't end, but you just no longer susceptible to it. That's what's going to change. Yeah, it's like asking, when does it ever stop raining? Or snowing, or whatever weather condition you don't like. Does this ever stop? No, it won't stop. But maybe you can learn how to deal with it better and not get pulled into this. Okay, get yourself a raincoat, okay, and go out anyway. Then you don't have to bicker about the rain or the weather condition, or make it responsible for you not doing things. That's sort of this advanced shadow work, that we recognize that this isn't about, oh, I'm so bad. And yes, these are often things that we like to sweep under the carpet, and that we don't want to look at. But once you learn that this is actually a safe thing to do, and that when you are connected with yourself, it doesn't feel like more pain or more separation. On the contrary, it helps you to connect more. And in energy work, we call this integration. So the art of shadow work, guys, is to integrate all these things that we are discovering, not to make them go away. So when you ask me, when does this ever stop? I have to say never, because it is not going away, but you will learn how to integrate it. And as you are bringing this back into yourself as a whole, it makes you whole. And that's then how you can understand healing better, because healing is not making flaws go away or imperfections go away. Healing is about reinstating the original state. the state of wholeness. And shadow work on this level shows us the things that we have separated out of ourselves, and as a consequence of that, it became harder or impossible for us to connect with ourselves. So it's pretty, if you break it down that way, pretty evident that what needs to happen is that we need to invite these parts back in. Instead of trying to make them go away, we need to almost do the counterintuitive approach and invite it in. So this is basically the task here for the end of May. And as far as June energies is concerned, let's move into the forecast now and look at how this is going to play out here for this next month. I've broken this down. The challenges of the month of June, and seen from, an overall energetic perspective, is this separation that I just mentioned, and the loneliness, the emptiness, and with it also the unholiness, as sort of a metaphor for not being whole, where we feel degraded, where we feel diminished, where we feel this scarcity. That is a very big component of June energies. It will come in form of the fear of missing out or running out of time. Has a very strong, almost like a bit of a gloomish a quality to it, where you really feel like, oh my God, this is it. Either or, that things will begin to appear very binary, okay? And we'll get pulled into this very rudimentary Neanderthal primal mind of ourselves, where we forget to feel, and what that does, here in conjunction with shadow work, as we have just discussed this, all right, it will trigger this externalization and idealization that our ego does. Why does it do that? Because it doesn't really, or can't take responsibility for what is going on when things get so overwhelming. But the problem is that when we are separated from within, pretty much everything is overwhelming. And so that's why I'm referring to the primal mind or the body mind, because here we are no longer actually able to act or cultivate our higher vibrational goals or our higher thinking. It is not possible. We really have to find a way to remind ourselves to move into our heart connection, to move into mindfulness, to really connect. This needs to be the #1 tool in our toolbox. And that is what we are learning now more and more. And it is no longer some kind of woo-woo thing. It is a very practical advice, guys, to connect within, to breathe through your heart, to cultivate this on a daily level. You guys all know that I suggest that if you have a little bit of energetic understanding, that you use a specific kind of breathing that is not very special. It's just specific in the sense that you really work your energies while you're doing this deeper diaphragmatic breathing, where you really work with your parasympathetic nervous system and focus on clearing, all the things that you no longer need. That is a big challenge. So if we don't have that pathway, that neural pathway formed in a solid way yet, it will lead to even more confusion and more frustration. So we have to really pay attention to that, because it leads to all these, this externalization of our power leads to all these projections. And I want to point out here for everybody that idealizations are projections as well. Idealizations are externalizations. They happen internally, but they are distancing you from yourself. It is a sort of a projection of your false self. Yeah, that's why idealizations and everything that comes with it, all the way to, you know, the pathological forms of idealization, such as fanaticism and so forth, but also conspiracy theories, as they are being sort of medialized, as they're being sort of used as propaganda tools. They're all extremely strong projections that will lead to increased absorption. So it's really not advisable for you energetically sensitives and empaths to buy into any of this. You really need to have a solid inner compass that tells you when things are emotional, when they feel extreme, when you're being put into a place, yeah, you know, like of having to make a choice between a rock and a hard place, because that's doing nothing here for the resolution. That's just pulling you more and more into your own duality, into this like black and white thinking. And oftentimes it's what is being displayed to you as your options is almost like a catch-22. It is a very dangerous place to be, as we will discover here in a few minutes. Then a component here that leans towards two things. I call this the acidity of coldness. One aspect of you know, this inner separation is that people become colder, and it's not necessarily that they want to be cold. It's just that the only way to actually deal with this duality is to you know, to numb yourself, to dissociate, to step out of yourself, because it gets too much. And what happens as a consequence of that, you know, and it's mostly coming from a place of overwhelm or freeze, is that we disconnect from our heart even more, so that it becomes harder and harder for us to feel, but to really feel, not just to feel anything, but to feel the warmth, you know, that comes through connection, be it the connection within or the connection with others. And most of that comes from these idealizations and these mental constructs that we have that somehow transport to us or get spoon-fed to us how things are supposed to be, or you know, what the right thing is to do. Keyword wokeness here, political correctness. Those are all words, as I have been predicting this in December with the inoculation list, where there's or good words, or good you know, measures that are being hijacked by the media and basically sort of turned around. It's almost like a reverse psychology, where you know, things are being degraded by making them sort of the state-of-the-art type of thing, and people get pulled into this. Perfect examples here are veganism, or even yoga to a certain degree, or spirituality. Spirituality has been misused in this way here for the last 50 years, guys. New Age has created literally a mind control tool to send people to the wrong exit. And you know, when it comes from me, I can assure you that there's nothing wrong with spirituality. There's nothing wrong with esotericism, if it is done in the right way, if it is done with your own internalized experiences, if it's done in a systematic way that you can reproduce this and form these neural pathways, you know, to your inner connection on your own, not through outer things, not through more workshops or more ceremonies or more this or that. You can only bypass that through forming your own inner experience. That nobody can take away from you. And that's then also what helps you to see through the coldness and what shows you the mind control. The worst damage that does, though, and this is the part here where I want to get very adamant for this forecast, is the damage that it does to your self-image. You might think that, when you follow all these things that could help you alleviate your separation pain, that you look better in the eyes of others, or that you get more validation, or that you get more money or whatever. But the reality of that is that it actually distances yourself from yourself, and more or less really prevents you from becoming authentic, from becoming congruent. And with that, then it prevents you from, well, being able to discern truth. And the reason why this is such a big subject here for June is because June is a month of massive revelations, massive propaganda, mind control in the media, simply because there are so many things right now that are sort of being revealed as untruths, or come to light that we always kind of already knew, sort of, but now they're being confirmed. And the media takes this in a way that it gets them the most clicks, or the most readership, or views, or whatever. And that's the problem, because if you know how this Neanderthal mind works, then you'll also understand that anything fear, anything pain, anything injustice, anything externalizing is sort of the way our ego prefers to see things when we are in this low vibe state. And therefore you don't have to be a clairvoyant or a rocket scientist to predict that. The only reason why this, I'm actually putting this in the forecast here, because this has been going on for a while, and I've predicted this for the next 2.5 years continually. Okay, this isn't just going to be here in June, but what it's going to do here in June is, in conjunction with some of the issues with emotional processing, is that people will actually freak out. They'll actually not be able to take it anymore, and this can lead to these explosions, these amygdala reactions, right, to Neanderthal decisions, really. And we'll see that on the world politics stage. We'll see that in many areas of our lives. We see it most though in regards to the vaccines, and to the continuing polarization that is going on, where all of a sudden we are faced with a reality that I want to call it a virtual reality, that more or less displays to us as in, well, you have to take the vaccine, or else it means that you are against humanity. Okay, so this is a reality that I want to invite you, or remind you to investigate whether that is actually true, and whether you actually have to make a decision. So one of the most common mind control techniques, guys, many of you have experienced this in their personal lives and their relationships, is gaslighting. And gaslighting has, of course, a bunch of different variations, but the main component of gaslighting is that it creates some kind of virtual reality, or some kind of duality, okay, that is supposed to either deny reality or events, or invalidate what is truly going on. Sometimes also, yes, to cover up, but that's not the main objective in most cases. It's more so to actually making you unsure about what it is that you are seeing here. And sort of lingo would be, to keep you in a continual state of cognitive dissonances, and literally asking yourself, what is real? no longer really knowing what is real, and as propaganda is then used to magnify that, to exacerbate that. You have like these tons of people who and usually two factions, okay, depending on which side of the media they listen to, create a sort of this echo chamber of that. So what you really, and this is extremely important here in the month of June, need to recognize that this fear and this pain that you experience through being in that state of questioning your own reality, that shrinks you, that makes you anxious, that makes you doubt yourself, that just makes you confused and helpless, that is an illusion. You have to break through that illusion. And why does it work on you, even though you were smart and you're energetically sensitive? That's because it triggers our core fear, and that is separation. To be separated from our own source of existence is something that is imminent to all us humans. And spirituality, healthy spirituality, the kind that you can learn, is what allows us to reconnect with that and to recognize that we cannot actually be separated from the source of our own existence, because we exist not because of the government or not even because of our parents. What brought us into existence is a greater power, and that greater power is evident. All right, nobody can claim that they brought us into existence, and we can all feel this within ourselves. And that is what we need to remember, because with that comes a sense for sovereignty for our own soul, comes a sense of truth, comes a sense of freedom, and a sense of love, a sense for love. We recognize that it is actually love that runs the show. And when we are being spoon-fed with a reality that projects that love is scarce, health is scarce, connection is scarce, social contexts are scarce, and the only solution is to buy more electronics, to distance more, to trust nobody, and to get the vaccine. I don't know about you guys, but there is multiple parts of me that are screaming, why do I even have to make a choice? Because guess what? I'm still existing, and I'll be existing tomorrow. And yes, there is something like COVID, and yes, there is something like influenza, and yes, there's all kinds of things. There's germs all around us. We can get sick every moment. Yeah, this can happen to all of us. Not to devalue or to minimize COVID, and all that comes with it, but there is no guarantee. And if we are run by that primal fear, we're reducing ourselves. And the reason why we need to see this as gaslighting is because there is massive machinery going on that keeps feeding us with that. And that is where we need to be suspicious. It doesn't matter which faction you look at. The point is, we don't have to make a decision. We can just go about our life, recognize what truly matters to us, and cultivate that, and cultivate what makes us strong, what empowers us. We don't have to go against people. We don't have to convince people. We don't have to, show them how wrong they are. That too is part of the gaslighting. That too is darkness. as well as idealizing and fantasizing into some kind of illusionary, fantasy world where, all of this suddenly goes away because we have a vaccine or because we have a new world leader or something like that. This isn't really what all this is about. This is probably the strongest code here for June that is coming in. Now the opportunities in that, so seeing things from the other perspective, are very interesting, and there's a lot of manifestation potential in all of this, because not only does it remind us of our inner connection if we have the consciousness level, it also makes us better understand our own potential as humans. And it allows us, due to the power of our consciousness, to go into truth with ourselves, where we're like, wait a minute, these are things that I have been doing too, or that I have been believing in, and that I have been cultivating with my approaches. And maybe that's the part here where I need to do a little bit of shadow work and see, where my actions, my consumer behavior, for example, has enabled this situation. This isn't like the one dark force out there that is trying to destroy everything. Yes, we do have forces of light and forces of dark, but when you really stand in that place where you feel and connect with your higher power, with the source of all existence, then you will recognize that the confrontation with untruths, the confrontation with darkness, the confrontation with that which doesn't work for you is actually part of creation. That is how we are designed as humans. We are designed to learn 2.5 times faster through pain, through what doesn't work. And so taking all that, you're going to have to see that, what it is that we are confronted with right now is there to make us or to help us to grow in our consciousness development. Because whenever we start growing in our awareness and upping our vibes, if you will, there is an initial pushback, and that pushback appears right now as if people or the world is sort of devolving. This is the pushback that happens when, the outer conditions are no longer conducive for this newer evolved state. And so just like in nature, things then have to harmonize, they have to integrate, they have to work themselves out until this new harmony is produced. And in June, the hardest part is really that, and I don't want to vilify the media. The media just does what most of our sort of social values dictate, namely maximizing profit, maximizing gain, maximizing gratification. Okay, so the media and the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry and the war industry and the pollution and all these things, who do you think brought all this into existence? That isn't some kind of dark force that did that. It's us. We are consuming all of this. We want all this. People want that kind of media. They want vaccines. They want these things. That's why they're being done. And for as long as, we let ourselves sort of get pulled into this virtual reality, produced by the majority of people that are still not high enough in consciousness level to understand this, we'll contribute to that. We'll contribute to that duality. And part of that is our own specialness, because we think, oh, we're so smart and we're so conscious and we're so spiritual, we can see through all that. No, that's not really spiritual growth. spiritual growth is something that has to do with understanding the bigger picture, seeing beyond ourselves, and seeing where this is going. You have to look at the whole entire process. You can't just look at what feels good or bad right now. Another opportunity here, really, besides the discernment of truth, and with it obviously, better decision making for ourselves, also what I called earlier, recognizing that you might not even have to make a decision. If you're in a cognitive dissonance, you shouldn't be making any decisions, because that higher functioning part of your brain is turned off, and your amygdala, that Neanderthal part of your nervous system, is turned on. So you shouldn't make any decisions. So sometimes consciously not making a decision, not the same as being indecisive. That's different. If I am being indecisive, I'm unconsciously choosing something, namely not making a decision. No, you can consciously choose to not make a decision. That's not indecision. Okay, but besides all that, what it can do for us is that it can inform us about this change, in form of, our bodies needing to be stronger, they needing to be cleaner in the way, we have to really change the approach to food and pharmaceuticals and nature, and begin to harmonize this more, or else, this is what we are seeing right now, this disharmony, invites too much duality. So we have to learn how to go into harmony with our body, how to go into harmony with our emotions, how to go into harmony with our mind, even with our spirituality, with our energies, and with nature. And here in this self-healing community, we call this integrating. The part that is really cool about this, and anyone who is really actively doing this, cultivating the ABCs of self-healing, all right, will probably have gotten glimpses of this already. Once you really recognize what it takes to be an active participant in this new reality for yourself, but also for the world, you will begin to see how everything changes in your life, how your relationships change, how you begin to connect in a different way with people. And that is something that your ego cannot make up, guys. That increased or, higher level of interaction with others is not something your ego can anticipate, because your ego functions based on scarcity, functions based on comfort zone. And what most of us have already discovered is that our comfort zone isn't comfy at all. So we already know that growth can only take place outside of our comfort zone. And that's then when we, actually have the courage, and when we're brave to make that step outside or pushing through our comfort zone, when we begin to see that there's a whole different world out there in regards to connecting with ourselves and connecting with others. And that all these struggles about fulfillment and meaning and purpose in life, that they were all part of this virtual reality. They were all part of this phantom pain, this illusion of separation. So this is the part that we can begin to experience here for ourselves in June. And for those of you who want to take this on in an active and conscious way, the self-healing tasks, as I've already laid them out here and there, is to really go into this courage to feel your true heart's desire. And for that, you're gonna have to learn how to connect with your heart, even when it's tough. You're gonna have to form a solid pathway for bypassing your autonomous nervous system, for bypassing your emotional reactivity. And in June, this will be triggered big time, guys. You need to gain more clarity, and you cannot have clarity in a state of cognitive dissonance. So in essence, you know, for most of you, bringing more clarity into your life and your relationships actually means to let go of the complications, uncomplicate your life, because most of us run into issues with our life and trying to keep up with the Joneses and with our relationships because we've allowed our life to become so complicated that we're always just trying to play catch up. We're always just playing catch up. Yeah, leave your phones out of your relationships. That's a very important tip. Do not text with your loved ones other than, you know, logistics. It's not a good way to communicate. It deteriorates and diminishes your feelings, and therefore, you know, waters or nurtures this illusion of separation. Besides, a lot of people are really so dependent on their phones that it's not even ADHD. It's literally you know, a dependency and addiction. And the first thing we can do is turn that silence button on, because you don't have to know every single time you get a notification or a text or an email or whatever notifications you've turned on. I would suggest that you turn all notifications off and look at your phone and the messages or whatever only when you feel ready to do that. Do not allow your phone to interrupt conversations or interactions with your loved ones. Feel more into like what you can decide, what you can control, and recognize that that can make you feel more adequate. Yeah, that it's this externalization and you know, sort of feeling life isn't giving you what you deserve, you know, the disappointment that comes with the entitlement and all that. That is what nurtures, what energizes your inadequacy, what makes you feel not enough, or what you know, sort of perpetuates some kind of imposter syndrome in you. Yeah, that fulfillment lies on the other side of that, and that is when you have the courage to step out of that spoon-fed illusion, okay, that you have to be in a certain way, or a lot of times it's also your own ego idealization really that does that. So yeah, the simple way to say this is really you know, to be less external and more internal, to really allow yourself to feel into things, to sit through things, to, you know, allow your body to be the signal giver for things that are not good for you, or you know, that are unprocessed. Allow your emotions to be there. There's no good or bad emotions. There are only emotions, and they all have a purpose. Okay, that's when, you know, you work with a coach or with a therapist to really work through these unprocessed emotions that often fly under your radar and then end up storing in your body and then ultimately manifesting as illnesses. Trust in what your ego cannot imagine, but your heart tells you. This is something very difficult to break down in this sort of matter-of-factish way, but it's literally when you feel something in your heart and somebody asks you, well, why do you want that? Or, you know, what do you want? And you say, I don't know, because I feel like it, or because I don't feel like it, or because it doesn't feel right, or because it does feel right. To have that courage to actually refer to your inner feeling. And whenever you do this, every single time you do this, you're strengthening this neural pathway to yourself. You are becoming a true self that way. And that's a very practical thing, guys. This has nothing to do with mindfulness or spirituality. It's a very, very practical thing to give yourself feedback on what you truly need, what you truly want, and then to express it accordingly and truthfully. And sometimes, yes, it requires courage, because many of us live in relationships and outer conditions that actually don't promote truth. Okay, then, you know, use your legs and remove yourself from that situation or relationship if it doesn't allow you to be in truth. appreciate every experience. This is linked to trusting in what the ego cannot imagine, because we are so quick with judging, you know, things that happen to us, you know, losing a job, or, you know, running out of money, or, you know, getting divorced or whatever, to seeing that as a disaster or as some kind of injustice. You know, when you actually look at every experience as a learning experience, and you appreciate, you know, the learning that can come from this, the growth that can come from this, even if you cannot see it in the moment, that's when you know that you are, you know, growing one with yourself. That's when you know that you are actually becoming a true self. And that's then ultimately, you know, on the spiritual level, then the self-healing task is to actually become responsible for our own self authority on all these different levels, for our own spirituality, for our own body, for our own thoughts and sentiments, and including the idealizations and projections that we do, and for our own emotions. That is then how we grow into our self-authority. So here, you know, the antidotes, as we have been breaking down the resonances for every month here in the things that we need to pay attention to, that we need to work with, and the things that we really need to let go of. No time for blind trust, blind faith, blind hope, because it will pull you into cognitive dissonances, and then you won't be able to make good decisions. It is also no time for projections of love, for fantasy bonds and idealizations of love, and, you know, sort of desires. Okay, they do not work well in June. They'll bite you in the butt, they'll smack you in the face. Okay, and we have to be really careful with you know, this addiction to self-bashing and degrading and questioning ourselves, because that is a sign that you are in a continual cognitive dissonance, in a continual, you know, sort of virtual reality where there's one or the collective, yeah, due to the fact that they're producing these dualities, yeah, pulling you into something that isn't actually true. So the red pill and the blue pill, you know, this sort of favorite you know, used analogy here is that the fact is you don't have to take a pill. Okay, you just have to stay connected with your own heart, and that's what you need to understand here is almost counterintuitive, because you know, the media and the collective energies are such that they produce this illusion of separation, which reduces us to a machine. It reduces us to just seeing ourselves as, you know, as a sort of a brain or a bunch of cells or DNA. And we have to recognize that that is not who we are. We are a spiritual being, first and foremost, guys. We are a soul with a body. A soul is a spiritual being, yeah, that happens to have a physical body. And so all these illusions of this brave new world, yeah, as Aldous Huxley called it, and as I picked it up here as metaphor for all these revelations and these things that will come up in June, yeah, brave new world, it's a virtual reality, guys, and it's pulling you into your own duality. And that's why this bifurcation that I have been talking about for years is maybe that's how you can understand it better. It puts you into this artificial place of having to choose a way, and these two ways that are being displayed to you as your options, yeah, is either or, black and white, yeah, they are the illusion. They are the illusion, because there's a third option, and that goes straight. You can take that, but nobody teaches you that. So don't stay in that externalized passive place, guys. That will sweep you away, because the outer conditions here, and this will be particularly strong here in the month of June till the end of November, the beginning of December, are such that it becomes harder and harder to connect with your heart. The outside, this outside world, yeah, if you look at this picture here, this heart that is actually sort of mechanic almost, it is a virtual reality. You can literally see this. It's stone cold. The world is getting very, very cold right now, and you need to remember that there is a portal inside of you. Yeah, I have a 7-year-old. He talks about portals all the time. It's, I guess, part of this reality that our kids grow up in. But there is this portal in you. We call this the sacred heart, that can show you the third option, that can show you the way through. Okay, so that is basically, you know, visualized, and here just zooming through the details of this, as you can stop the video and look at it, that we're gonna have to deal with here. So as I have to hurry up and, you know, go through the months real quick, I want to give you some important dates. Yeah, where these main subjects here, these collective gaslighting and cognitive dissonances, the task of you know, integrating and recovering our love and our heart connection, yeah, and with it also all these new dimensions of self-healing and also spiritual healing and energy healing, how this will, you know, how this will display itself. After going through a little bit of a hiccup now here in this last week of May. Yeah, so this last week of May that we're in right now is the 24th of May right now. We'll come in with a very strong sort of like banging you on the head with your own illusions. It's perfect time for shadow work, actually, as we have just discussed here prior to the forecast. And this will coincide with the lunar eclipse and full moon here in a few days, guys. So this is a very heavy time, and it will come with a lot, with a flood of events, a flood of you know, news media. I don't know if you can feel this too, but it's almost like unbearable right now to read the news. There's this permanent changes, and it permanently, you know, goes back and forth between things, and it's become really impossible, you know, to know which of the news outlets and which of the media we can trust. So it's best to really go into your heart. It's okay to be informed, but don't believe that just because you've gotten info or intel from, you know, this or that place, that is going to help you to see more truth. So more info doesn't necessarily lead to more truth, guys. Yeah, when you know how to get to insights, and when you know how to train your mind, including when you know to train your primal mind, okay, then you'll recognize that the truth, you know, in info has a lot to do with the perspective of the person that is conveying the info, and with it also the perception. So, you know, you'll find yourself, you know, wearing rose-colored or, you know, gloomish glasses, depending on sort of what the agenda is that was behind the info. So be aware of that. The end of May is a good time to, you know, participate in social things, you know, in really coming together as a community, like we do this year with the online meditations and the energy talks, or this sacred self-healing community. You'll feel that it will bring instantaneous relief when you can talk to like-minded and really exchange on this level. So that it just here for this last week of May, that will then end sort of with lots of surprises in May, and then put us into that place of overwhelm. But still, the first week of May is actually very harmonic in a way, because it, through all these revelations, shows us pathways to self-actualization. We just have to be more concrete. We have to recognize that this FOMO feel in us, that we're running out of time, we're missing out on something, that is partially truth. Just not how media is trying to tell you that this is because of this or that or any external things, but because of your internal states. You have to really have a clear picture of what you stand for, what your values are, and where you want to go, and have a strategy for this. Okay, you don't have to have all fixes and all answers, but you do want to have a strategy on how to deal with things, and listen to this inner place that informs you about it's time to come out of the woodwork, guys. And the first week of May will give you a little bit of that. If you allow yourself to go deep and to really sort of dive into this creative immersion, that can come out of visioning and really feeling into who you are, without ideals, without sort of the things that you're being spoon-fed from the outside, then this can be a really, really cool time. Now, the new moon time around the 9th, 10th, 11th of June can or will trigger our core fears again. So there's a lot of this FOMO energy, this fear of missing out energy, that actually gets explosive. It gets really inflammatory. It gets really sort of, and media plays a huge role in this month. Okay, where we have these fear, uncertainty, and really sort of doom kind of info places that on one hand tell us that everything is going to go down the drainer, and then on the other hand they'll present sort of this brave new world or a better future to us, and all that does is pull you into this blind hope, blind faith, blind trust, and that's a very, very dangerous place to be in. Because that's always a sign that you're dealing with some kind of gaslighting. Okay, then a little bit after that, there's we're going to feel a little more active, and unfortunately, whenever this sort of depressive place gets more energy, it can also lead to like acting out. So we're still in, or collective is still in that sort of Neanderthal place with things, and then really continuing all the way to the 20th, 21st, when we have the summer solstice. There is a massive sort of release of unprocessed emotions, and it will lead to everything from truth whistleblowers coming forward to escapism and people sort of migrating, running away. There's a massive power struggle going on right now, and this isn't very pretty, guys, what is going on here in economy, politics, stock market, and so forth. So I don't believe anything that you're seeing. Our task is to go into this recovery mode with our inner connection and also with our outer connections, and that will be impeded in that time. So pretty much so that the entire sort of middle of June, the 2nd, 3rd of June is very problematic here. Lots of dualities, and this is actually the moment of bifurcation. So I've actually located the moment of bifurcation to the June 24th. Okay, this I'll be interested to find out how this plays out. But then in the last third of June, there will be a little more sort of optimism. There will be new things that come forward. There will be a better expression, a better communication. Some of you will actually sort of feel that their relationships are kind of revitalized, but it's very short-lived, guys. It's very short, because you know what it really is that we need to find in June is this solid pathway to inner warmth, and we can't find that on the outside. This needs to be integrated with the help of our spiritual impulse, yearning, the spiritual connection. Okay, and I'm not saying that because I'm an energy coach. It's very, very evident that without this higher thinking, this higher learning, this higher being, we cannot really address any of these outer conditions that we are in right now. So around the full moon time, then, you know, at the end of the month, you'll see that there is, you know, a really strong sort of almost a new reality kind of display. And that is the mind control that I am referring to, which is going on obviously for decades already, but here it will come into a very sort of authoritarian display, yeah, where you can feel this, that you are getting pushed into having to make a choice. And that is a very cold choice. That is an impossible choice. It's an artificial choice that that the reality is being bent to produce. It's the choice between a rock and a hard place. And what you need to understand, that your job is to go straight through and find inner warmth. That is your job, okay? Guys, this concludes the forecast and also our discussion here for June 21. Take advantage of all the free tools that I offer to connect with another, to connect within. There's one active online course called 24-Step Sacred Self-Healing Experience, where you can really learn this on all these different levels, step by step. And then there's going to be a new online course soon called the Energy Course, which teaches you, you know, lots of energy work techniques one by one. So it's 6 modules with 3 lessons each that all allow you to experience these energy work modalities by yourself and learning them by yourself. Yes, and come to the free sessions that we have here every day on Skype. The best way to stay tuned is to sign up for my newsletter, for my email list, and you will get info when there's a free energy session coming up. There's the links to all the Skype meditations that we offer, and there's also links to the programs and paid sessions. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, don't wait any longer. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for participating. Yeah, sign up here to the YouTube channel or wherever you're seeing this video to stay tuned with this deeper energetic point of view. Bye-bye.